The Shadow Temple from Ocarina of Time might just be the creepiest location in any Zelda game. Found in the Kakariko village graveyard, it's such a mysterious location that implies that the village isn't always happy and peaceful. Welcome to another episode of Temple by Temple, where your host Jickbean takes a look at the temples in Legend of Zelda games. In today's episode of the series, we're going to take a look at the Shadow Temple alongside the Bottom of the Well mini-dungeon. Yes, I know I already covered the Bottom of the Well previously, however, I think I can expand upon my analysis of it a lot. If this is your first time watching a Temple by Temple video, well hello, welcome to this glorious series, and let me break down how I analyze things. I'll talk about the entire lead up to the temple alongside everything inside I find important to talk about. At the end of the temple, I'll give it a standard tier list grade. Gold Skulltula tokens also don't play a huge factor in the temple's grade. That covers everything, so without any further ado, let's get right into the grading and analysis of Ocarina of Time's Shadow Temple. Now that Zora's Domain and Lake Hylia are back to normal, even though Zora's Domain is still completely covered with ice, but whatever, we can now head on over to Kakariko Village. Things aren't looking super good here though, as the village has been lit on fire. Sheik is here just staring down a well and not even making an effort to put out the fire. Some hero you're gonna turn out to be, Sheik. Turns out there's a reason she's staring at the well, because some sort of spirit bursts out of the well and starts flinging Sheik all over the place. Link, being a good Samaritan, tries to protect her but gets knocked out by the phantom spirit. When Link comes to, Sheik is by his side and tells him that the terrible spirit that Impa had once sealed has now been released. Apparently, Impa has already made her way on over to the Shadow Temple to try and seal the spirit once more, but of course she's gonna need some backup. The Shadow Temple is located behind Kakariko's graveyard, and Sheik is nice enough to teach us a song in order to get there fast. We get taught the Nocturne of Shadow, and it's a beautiful piece of music, but I don't really think it fits where we're being taken. Even though we can technically make our way to the Shadow Temple, we're not going to be able to do much because we don't have a certain item. That, my friends, is where the mini-dungeon, the Bottom of the Well, comes into play. In order to access that, though, we need to learn the Song of Storms. If we go into the windmill, we'll find Guru as he complains about some kid with an ocarina years ago. Apparently, the kid played some sort of song and screwed up the whole windmill operation. For almost no reason whatsoever, he decides to teach the song to Link. I don't know what possessed this man to teach Link a song that he hates, but hey, at least we know the Song of Storms now. We can't actually do the Bottom of the Well as adult Link, so we need to head back to the Temple of Time and return the Master Sword to its pedestal. Now that we're young again, we need to head back on over to Guru and play the Song of Storms. Playing the Song of Storms inside the windmill will cause it to spin super fast and drain all the water from the well. Mr. Guru isn't too pleased with Link, but luckily for us, we don't care about how our actions affect others. With the well drained, we can finally enter the Bottom of the Well mini-dungeon. While normally the very first thing we talk about in each dungeon is the music, I'm not going to talk about this one quite yet. The Bottom of the Well and the Shadow Temple share the exact same theme, and while that may be considered lazy to some, it does work for the two locations. Instead, let's talk a little bit about the lore related to the Bottom of the Well. Most of the things people say about it are just theories, and no one really knows for certain what this place is. Many players, myself included, believe that the place was connected to the Shadow Temple at one point and was pretty much just used as an extended torture chamber. There's hard evidence backing this up from the countless cages, torture devices, and human remains found all throughout the mini-dungeon. According to some old dude in Kakariko Village, there used to be a house where the well stood, and apparently he had an eye that could see the truth. My best guess is that this guy might have just been big into torturing criminals, but something tells me they weren't all deserving of it. Oh yeah, just a quick reminder, this game was rated E for everyone, by the way. As soon as you enter the well, there's a little crawl space we have to go through to truly get into the dungeon. We can then drop down a bit and find a Skulltula alongside the bones of tortured people. While this room seems like a dead end, you can actually just walk straight through this wall. This is the main room of the Bottom of the Well, and there's not really a whole bunch to do here, at least right now. What we can do though is head to the back of the room where there's a Triforce symbol on the ground. Just like every time we see this symbol, we need to play Zelda's Lullaby, and afterwards more water starts to disappear. Once again, Ocarina of Time proves that you don't need to have logic to make a good game. Now that the water's been drained, we can head back to the entrance of the central room where there's now a new area down below to explore. After taking a crawl space and taking out another Skulltula, we can climb a wall and enter the boss room. Once again, I have to ask how the ESRB rated this game an E with this absolutely creepy room. There's skulls all over the wall and floor alongside pale white hands sticking out of the ground. If you walk up to one of them, you'll be grabbed as the boss of the Bottom of the Well, Dead Hand, will appear. I can only imagine the nightmares this thing must have given kids back in the 90s. Once you break free from his grimy mitts, you can unleash attacks at his head. After a few though, he'll run away and you'll have to get grabbed again. This boss, in all honesty, kinda sucks and is more about heightened moments and aura than actual fun gameplay. The fight can be done a whole lot quicker if you have a large supply of Deku Sticks though. Once you've conquered the Dead Hand in his hands, a chest spawns in the middle of the room containing the Lens of Truth. This item allows you to see things that you wouldn't normally be able to see while taking up your magic bar. Now that's pretty much it for the requirements of the Bottom of the Well, but there's still quite a few things we can do here. Using the Lens of Truth, we can find a whole bunch of hidden areas, including a fake wall that has a chest with a small key. We can also access a whole new area with a bunch of cages. Inside one of the cages is a big chest, however there is a hole in the floor, so look out for that. Inside the very large chest is the compass. You can also go even deeper down the well and come across a silver rupee puzzle. I remember this area in particular creeping me out as a kid. From the poisonous water, skull torches, and countless reed heads, there's a lot of scary things down here. There's also a bunch of boulders we can blow up, and they each lead to a different pathway. The one on the far right in particular has another big chest behind it containing the dungeon map. Once you get all the silver rupees, you can make your way back to the main room. We can find even more hidden walls containing even more small chests with small keys. We can actually use some of these small keys on locked doors in the cage room. We can find a gold skulltula in here, which is always awesome. In the top right corner of the central room, there's a crawl space that leads to yet another locked door. The next room has a whole bunch of enemies, but keep in mind there are invisible holes in the floor. Through the next door is a like, a chest containing a blue rupee, and a gold skulltula. That's kinda about it for the bottom of the well. I think it's pretty cool that there isn't a definitive end to the dungeon, but at the same time, that also hinders how good it can be. It's definitely very creepy, but besides a couple gold skulltulas, there's not much to do. The dead hand boss fight is just fine and can be pretty slow at times. Just like the ice cavern, I don't think I can give this any higher than a C. The ice cavern is definitely better than the bottom of the well, but there's some promising things about it. The creepy atmosphere really gives this temple a little bit of a boost in its rating because I love creepy areas in gaming. I really just think instead of a mini dungeon, they should have just added this bit onto the Shadow Temple instead. Now that we've acquired the Lens of Truth, we can play the Nocturne of Shadow and head over to the entrance of the Shadow Temple. The very first thing we see are some stairs leading to a room with a whole bunch of unlit torches. There's a platform on the center that we need to stand on, and we can use Din's fire to light up all the torches and make our way into the Shadow Temple. As is tradition, let's go ahead and take a look at the Shadow Temple theme. While there's been unsettling elements found in the other dungeon themes, the Shadow Temple definitely takes the cake for being the creepiest theme in the game. The song starts with a wind in the background alongside a slow deep moan. There's also slow bongos going on in the background, which definitely represent the boss of this temple, Bongo Bongo. While the slow deep moan is more apparent, there's also some ethereal voices in the background. These voices contrast with each other pretty well and almost give off an angel versus devil dynamic. Finally, there's a hasty harpsichord that really adds tension to the track. The Shadow Temple theme isn't necessarily something that I would add on a playlist or anything, but it's such a well-made theme for the temple. The Shadow Temple isn't just some random creepy temple hidden in Kakariko Village, and its true reason for existing is way darker. The Shadow Temple used to be used as a torture chamber by the royal family of Hyrule. The Sheikah tribe were the ones who actually did the torturing, and it's become a pretty taboo subject with the royal family. And let me tell you, the torturing must have been super awful because there's all sorts of torture devices in this place. Having creepy music plus being visually disturbing massively adds to the atmosphere of the temple. But now let's get to the temple itself, which starts with a gap that we can hookshot across. As we approach this wall, a message pops up saying that the shadow will yield only to the one with the Eye of Truth. We can walk right through the wall though and enter a new room. There's a lever we can push into the right spot to open up a pathway, but first there's an invisible wall we need to tread on through. Things look like a dead end at first, but if we walk up to this skull, we'll be given yet another message about how the Lens of Truth will allow us to see things we wouldn't normally be able to see. Oh my goodness, man, I'm already getting tired of hearing about this. I get it, the Lens of Truth is a very helpful item, and I can see clearly everything has come to life. Past the first skull wall is a whole room filled with them, but this glowing one on the right is where we need to head. We get another message from it saying, "Here is gathered Hyrule's bloody history of greed and hatred." Sounds pretty nifty, bro, just let me walk on right through ya. Through this door is a room with a single reed head inside that can be taken out easily and a couple of keys hiding in the ceiling. Once all the enemies are gone, a big chest spawns in containing the dungeon map. We can keep moving through more fake walls, getting the same two messages over and over again, eventually finding a door leading to a mini-boss. As you can see, this is yet another dead hand boss fight, and it works the exact same way as in the bottom of the well. He's super easy now that we have a whole lot of different powerful weapons to defeat him with. Once we take him out, a chest spawns in containing the item of the dungeon, the hover boots. I vastly prefer these to the iron boots, and I think they're far more creative. Now we can head back into the very first room where we need to move this lever in the right place. All but one of these skulls are fake, and we have to align the lever with the one real skull using the Lens of Truth. When we do that, the gate blocking the next room opens up, and we can use the hover boots to get across the gap. As we descend deeper into the temple, we come across a Beamos and a couple of hidden rooms. If we go towards the right, we'll become locked in a room with two Gibdos. After easily taking them out, another big chest spawns in containing the compass. Well, now let's head on on over to the left room where there's definitely an interesting torture device here. This is yet another silver rupee room, which I'm always glad to see. There's a swinging sickle in the middle of the room that can hit you almost everywhere. While you can technically brute force it and get hit by the sickle, it's way easier to just crouch under it. Most of the rupees are pretty easy, but there's one placed on a higher platform that you can only hookshot to. In order to avoid getting hit, you have to get a very specific angle on it, but it's doable. Once all the rupees have been achieved, a gate unlocks, allowing us to open a chest and get our very first small key. There's also a room in the back corner that later can be used to skip forward in the temple if you decide to leave it at some point. Now with the small key, we can head back to the beamer room where there's actually a wall that we can bomb, revealing a locked door. This allows us to keep going deeper into the temple, and there's all sorts of invisible enemies around here. Seriously, as you descend, there's so many Skulltulas. You ever think it gets boring being a Skulltula? Like, it doesn't seem like they get to move around very much, and I don't think many people have gone through the Shadow Temple recently to mingle with them. Past the Skulltulas, we can come across our very first instance of guillotines. Okay, yes, I know this makes sense from a game design standpoint, but wouldn't this place be really inefficient for torturing people? The place really isn't organized that well, and there's all these gaps in the floor. Did the royal family and the Sheikah also have hover boots in order to get across the gaps? Past the guillotines, we finally enter our first big room of the temple. I've always loved how open this area is. The first thing we gotta do is jump across some platforms that have guillotines on them. They vary in how fast they come crashing down, and it's pretty fun to get the timing exactly right. Past those is a big square platform where you'll have to fight a Stalfos. These guys are always super fun to fight, and I'm glad they're here. After taking him out, we can go either left or right. Let's start on the right side. Okay, maybe I should actually make the jump though. Once you do make this jump, you'll be greeted by yet another silver rupee puzzle. They're pretty easy to collect, but one of them can be a bit annoying as he's inside this little beamer boy. As is tradition, once you get all 5 silver rupees, a new area becomes available to explore. In this next room, there's some spikes going up and down, blocking you from exploring the rest of the room. Luckily for us, there's a movable block that we can use to stop the spikes, allowing us to cross to the other side. Along the way, there's some cages, with one of them having a chest containing a bundle of arrows. Gee, thanks, I get a bundle of arrows for risking my life. How rewarding. Once we get the block to the other side of the room, we can then climb up some platforms and walk across these spikes. Up here we can access more chests, with this one right here giving us a whopping blue rupee. Thank goodness we're getting rewarded so handsomely with the risk we're taking. There's also a switch over here that when pressed down spawns in yet another chest. After a bit more platforming, we can open said chest and finally get a useful item, being a small key. We can now head back to the big open room from earlier, and while we could just progress through the temple normally, there is a room on the left side that we can go check out. It doesn't look like there's much to explore, however using the lens of truth we can spot some platforms. Then we can use our hover boots across them and eventually make it to a door. At first there seems to be nothing but a like in here, but using the lens of truth we can see a bunch of keys and a swinging sickle in the middle of the room. If we take out all the enemies, the door will unlock, leading us to a gold Skulltula and multiple chests containing a whole lot of nothing. Well, that was a pretty pointless detour, so let's get back to the main portion of the temple. Using the lens of truth, we can once again platform over a few platforms, eventually making it to a locked door. Through the locked door, we come across our third silver rupee puzzle of the temple. Okay, I know I said I love these puzzles countless times, but man, 3 in 1 temple seems like a little much. At least in this one, there's some invisible spikes alongside redeads to make the room more challenging. It's not really that challenging though, and once you get all the rupees, a new door opens. Before we go through there though, we can re-kill the redeads in order to open up a chest containing another whopping 5 rupees. This next room has also been a personal favorite of mine. There's this big vase looking thing that you need to throw a bomb in. After it explodes, a small key pops out, which is refreshing considering most of the time there would just be a chest here. Oh yeah, and there's also a gold Skulltula in here as well. With the small key, we can head back into the previous room and hookshot up to a locked door. We then get to walk through a long twisting hallway with some blade traps and fans trying to blow you into them. If you use the iron boots, the fans don't affect you at all. I love when temples go back and make new uses for old temple items. It makes originally boring items like the iron boots at least feel a bit more useful. Other times though, you'll need to use the hover boots to get over gaps even while the fans are blowing at you. Luckily though, they stop and the timing isn't too bad. Past that fan is a room with 3 different fans trying to get you off of one platform. There's a door at the end of the platform that leads to a room with a couple of redeads. There's also yet another pointless chest in here containing another bundle of arrows. This wasn't actually the way we were supposed to go, and instead we need to head back to the previous room and use the hover boots to make it to the next room. This room's got a lot of things in it, but let's start by taking out these Gibdos. As usual, a chest spawns in the center of the room containing yet another 5 rupees. Now quite obviously, you need to come over into this corner, bomb this pile of bones, and open up a chest with a small key. We can then use said small key on a door and enter yet another awesome room. There's this giant ship that looks absolutely awesome, and there's a box we need to push into place in order to get up to it. In the middle of the ship is a Triforce symbol, and of course that means we need to play Zelda's Lullaby. When we do so, the ship starts to move, and later down the line some Stalfos spawn for you to fight. Still, I asked the question, how is this truly used, because this looks like an amusement park ride rather than a torture device. According to my research, this ship is supposed to represent Sharon's ferry across the River Styx. Basically, the whole thing is supposed to resemble a trip from the land of the living to the land of the dead. I think that just having the ship here is super cool and adds to the creepy factor of the temple. Eventually, the boat starts to sink, so you have to hop onto this platform so you don't die. We can also find a door that takes us to some maze with invisible walls. There's 4 corners, and then the other 3 are separate doors. If we go through the southern door, we'll come across a very gruesome looking room. There's more torture devices and a bunch of blood on the floor. We also gotta take out an invisible wall master in order to get a small key. Believe it or not, the blood was censored in later versions. I mean, this is a lot of blood for a Zelda game. We can then head through the west door where there's more giant skull vases we need to chuck bombs into. They don't give you anything too important, but hey, a few more rupees never hurt anybody. Finally, we can head through the north door where we get stuck in the Death Star trash compactor. These spiky wooden walls are moving in quick, and in such a creative puzzle solution, we need to use Din's fire in order to break the spikes. I've always thought that this was an awesome puzzle. Anyways, after taking out a Redead, we can open up this very colorful chest containing the boss key. Now that we've collected the boss key, we can head back to where we jumped off the ship and shoot some bomb flowers with an arrow. This causes a giant bird pillar to fall and allow us to cross to the other side of the room where there's a locked door. Through that door we enter the room right before the boss room. At first it doesn't look like there's any way to cross to the other side, however using the lens of truth we can then jump to a bunch of different platforms, eventually reaching the boss door. As we enter the boss room, the first thing in our sights is a hole that we can jump down. Luckily for us though, some giant drum breaks our fall and we meet the boss of the Shadow Temple, Bongo Bongo. This fella right here was the phantom that attacked Link and Sheik near the Kakariko village well. Now guys, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this boss. For the Shadow Temple being as creepy as it is, the design of Bongo Bongo just doesn't fit with the vibe of the temple. Now I would be able to forgive that if I found the boss fight itself to be super fun. Spoiler alert, I don't find it fun at all. You have to use the lens of truth to even see the guy, and you can use your bow and arrow to stun his hands. You can also use the bow to stun the boss itself by hitting what I assume to be his eye. Once that's done, you can then just wail on him with your sword. In between things, he'll bang on his drums, which causes you to bounce up in the air, making it harder to attack him. I really don't hate the concept of this fight, but I don't think this should have been the Shadow Temple boss. Honestly, I think I would have rather fought Phantom Ganon here than in the Forest Temple. Anyways, once Bongo Bongo is defeated, we can grab our heart container and take another trip to the Chamber of Sages. As you probably could have predicted, Impa turns out to be the Shadow Sage. She assures Link that Zelda is fine and we'll be seeing her again soon. Impa has to stay here, but before we leave her, she's nice enough to grant us some of her powers with the Shadow Medallion. Now let's get into the grading of the Shadow Temple. While I'm a big fan of the creepy atmosphere and some of the awesome set pieces, I do think this temple falls short in a lot of places. I already talked about how I'm not the biggest fan of the main boss, but there's other things like the 3 different silver rupee puzzles that make the dungeon feel repetitive. Don't get me wrong, I love those puzzles, but 3 in 1 temple is a bit egregious. I think the enemy variety here is pretty good, and the ferry to the other world is absolutely awesome. This temple also has some of the best lore to it out of any temple in the game. Unfortunately though, I'm gonna have to give the Shadow Temple a grade of B. It really hurts to say that this might just be the weakest adult dungeon in Ocarina of Time, but I find the negatives of the Shadow Temple to really hurt my enjoyment of it. I don't think it's a bad temple or anything, but the Shadow Temple definitely falls short compared to other temples in the game. Well, there you have it. There's the Shadow Temple graded and analyzed. I wasn't expecting to have this temple be the lowest rated adult temple so far, but after looking deeper into the temple, I couldn't help but notice a bunch of flaws with it. Next week will be the final episode of Ocarina of Time Temple by Temple, and of course, we'll be looking at the Spirit Temple, which has always been an awesome temple in my eyes. Also, if you haven't seen it, I posted a poll on how you guys think I should go about analyzing the final dungeons of the game. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about it, so instead I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the matter. And thank you guys so much for the love and support you guys have been showing me recently. It truly means the absolute world to me, and I love seeing all these new people coming in to watch my videos. It's also just been such a blast conversing with you guys in the comments. If you guys could please show some support to the channel with a like, subscribe, or even a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. I think that's gonna do it for me though. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be seeing ya.